My son told me to smile for the wedding photos. He did not know I had just stopped payment on the $63,000 check he needed before the reception could continue. He leaned close to me while the photographer adjusted the lights. "Just smile for the photos, Mum," he whispered. "Don't make today harder than it already is." So I smiled. I stood there in my pale blue dress, with my hands folded in front of me, my pearl earrings warm against my neck, and my only son beside me. His arm rested lightly around my shoulder. The camera clicked. And no one in that beautiful room knew what I had done 23 minutes earlier. I had stepped into a quiet hallway near the coat room. I had called my bank, and I had stopped payment on the check Evan was counting on to cover the final wedding overages, the bar extension, the vendor overtime, and the charges he had been hiding from almost everyone. I did not do it because I hated him. I did not do it to ruin his wedding. And I did not do it because one person hurt my feelings. I did it because by that morning, after months of being useful but unseen, I finally understood the truth. My money had been invited to that wedding. My silence had been expected. But I had not really been welcomed. And before that day was over, my son would learn something he should have learned long before he stood beside me for that photograph. A mother's love is not the same thing as permission. My name is Marilyn Porter. I am 69 years old. I live in a small Ohio town about 40 minutes outside Columbus, in the same beige ranch house where my husband Henry and I raised our son, Evan. The maple tree in our front yard is taller than the roofline now. The kitchen cabinets still have the brass handles. Henry installed himself in 1989. The back porch light hums when it rains. And every spring, no matter how cold the winter has been, the daffodils come up along the fence. Like they are keeping a promise. I have been a widow for 4 years. Before that, I was Henry's wife for 43. I worked as a school office administrator for most of my adult life. I was the woman who knew which child forgot lunch money, which parent needed a second copy of a permission slip, and which teacher was pretending not to be sick because there was no substitute available. I was good at smoothing things over. Too good, maybe. Henry used to say I could calm a room just by walking into it with a clipboard. He meant it as a compliment. After he died, I started to wonder if maybe I had spent too much of my life calming rooms other people had made chaotic. But to understand why a mother would stop a check on her son's wedding day, you need to understand what that money cost me before anyone ever saw the flowers. Henry and I were never rich. We were careful. There is a difference. We drove cars until the doors complained. We ate leftovers. We repaired what we could. We saved because Henry believed peace of mind was worth more than showing off. He used to sit at our kitchen table with his yellow legal pad, tapping a pen against the wood. "Help family when you can, Marilyn," he would say, "but don't let love make you careless." At the time, I thought I understood him. I did not. Not fully. Not until Evan's wedding. Evan is my only child. He is 41 now. But some part of me still sees the boy, with grass stains on his knees, one shoe untied, asking if we could stop for ice cream, even though dinner was already on the stove. He is not a bad man. That matters. This is not a story about a monster son and a helpless mother. Real life is rarely that clean. Evan has a decent job in logistics. He pays his mortgage. He calls on Mother's Day. He knows how to carry heavy boxes without being asked. And when Henry was sick, Evan came over every Saturday to mow the lawn, even when he was tired. But Evan has one weakness, and over the years it got worse. He does not like discomfort. If someone is upset, he looks for the nearest person who will absorb it. For many years, that person was me. When he was younger, I thought that was motherhood. If the school called, I handled it. If money was short, I helped. If there was a hard conversation, I found a gentler way to say it. After Henry died, Evan leaned on me in a different way. At first, I was grateful. It made me feel needed. It made the house feel less empty. But slowly, without either of us saying it out loud, my usefulness became expected. And expectation, if it sits long enough, starts to look a lot like entitlement. I did not see it clearly at first. Or maybe I did. Maybe I just looked away. The wedding made it impossible to keep pretending. Evan met Claire 2 years after Henry passed. Claire was 38. Polished. Pretty in a careful way. She had a soft voice that always sounded like she had thought through every sentence before saying it. She worked in marketing for a medical device company. She had the kind of closet where blouses were arranged by colour. I wanted to like her. At first I did. She sent thank you notes. She brought a bottle of wine the first time she came for dinner. She complimented my lemon bars and asked for the recipe, though I suspected she would never actually make them. Claire was not cruel. She was careful. Cruel people enjoy hurting you. Careful people sometimes hurt you because your pain does not fit the image they are trying to protect. Her parents, Diane and Robert Morrison, were the same way. Nice enough on the surface. Well-dressed. Well-spoken. The kind of people who said lovely when they meant acceptable. And interesting when they meant no. When Evan called to tell me he had proposed, I cried into a dish towel. Henry should have been there to hear it. That was my first thought. My second thought was that maybe this was the start of a new season for our family. A happier one. A fuller table. Holidays with grandchildren someday. Someone else laughing in the kitchen again. I told Evan and Claire I was happy for them. And I meant it. So when Evan came to me about the wedding budget a few weeks later, I thought I was doing what any loving mother would do. I did not know then that the first check would not be the problem. The problem would be what everyone decided my money meant. It was a rainy Sunday afternoon when Evan came over. I remember the rain because he left his wet shoes on the mat by the back door. The same way he had since he was a teenager. I had made vegetable soup. We sat at the kitchen table with steam fogging the window above the sink. Evan looked nervous. "Mom," he said, turning his spoon slowly in his bowl. "Claire and I are trying to figure out the wedding budget." I nodded. "Weddings have gotten expensive." He gave a short laugh. "That's one way to put it." Then he looked toward the living room. Henry's photograph sat on the bookshelf in a silver frame. It was from our 40th anniversary. Henry was wearing a navy suit. He was smiling like he knew a joke no one else had heard yet. "I don't want to ask too much," Evan said. That should have warned me. People usually say that right before they ask too much. But he was my son, and I saw embarrassment in his face. A mother is trained to respond to that. Even when the child is grown. Even when the child is standing on the edge of middle age. "What are you asking?" I said. He told me Claire's parents were helping with certain things. The rehearsal dinner. Some flowers. Maybe the bridal shower. But the venue was more than they expected. The guest list had grown. And Claire had always dreamed of a beautiful wedding. He used that word several times. Beautiful. I listened. Then I stood up. I took my checkbook from the small desk near the pantry. And I sat back down. "I can give you $35,000, I said. Evan stared at me. "Mom, that's incredibly generous." "It is," I said. "And it is also final." He nodded quickly. "Of course. I mean that, Evan. I want to help you begin your marriage with joy, but I am not wealthy." "I know. Your father and I saved carefully. Some of that money is for my future care. Some is for the house. Some is for emergencies." "I know, Mom. This is my wedding gift, not the beginning of an open account." He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I promise," he said. "This is more than enough. We won't ask for anything else." I believed him. Maybe because I wanted to. Or maybe because I had spent 41 years believing that if I gave Evan enough love, enough patience, and enough second chances, he would eventually become careful with the parts of me that could break. For a little while, everything seemed fine. Claire sent me a text with 3 heart emojis. She wrote, "Thank you, Marilyn. This means so much." Diane called it generous beyond words. That sounded warm, until I realized it did not actually contain the words, "thank you." I tried not to notice that. That is how these things begin. Not with shouting, not with slammed doors. With a small feeling in your chest that says, something is wrong here. And then you talk yourself out of listening. I did not know it yet, but that first check changed how they saw me. Not all at once, but enough. The first extra request came 6 weeks later. Evan called on a Tuesday evening. I was folding towels in the laundry room. "Mom, I hate to even bring this up," he said. I set down a hand towel. There it was again. That little sentence people use when they know they are about to step over a line. "What happened?" I asked. He said the venue needed an additional deposit because the guest count had gone up. Claire had forgotten to include several cousins. It was not a big deal, he said. Just a timing issue. He would pay me back after things settled. "How much?" I asked. $5,000. I closed my eyes. $5,000 is not a timing issue. It is a number with weight. But he sounded strained. I could hear voices in the background. Claire's voice, maybe. A cabinet closing. A dog barking somewhere. "This is the last thing, Mom," he said. "I swear." I paid it. Then came the bar upgrade. Then the photography balance. Then a floral overage, because the original arrangements looked too small in the room. Then vendor overtime, because the reception timeline had changed. Each request came wrapped in an apology. Each apology came with urgency. And each time, Evan said some version of the same sentence. "Just this once. This is the last thing. I promise I'll make it right." At first, I called it wedding stress. Then I called it helping. Then I called it being a good mother. By the time I ran out of excuses, the number had grown so large that I could hardly say it out loud. The first time I truly felt erased was at a wedding planning lunch in April. Claire had invited me to a restaurant with white tablecloths and tiny vases of tulips on every table. Diane was there, of course. So was Claire's sister, Amanda. Amanda took notes on a tablet, like she was managing a corporate event. I wore a cream cardigan. And the pearl earrings Henry had given me on our 30th anniversary. I arrived 10 minutes early. Diane was already seated. "Marilyn," she said, standing halfway. "So glad you could join us. Join us. Not meet us. Not plan with us. Join us." It was a small thing. And small things are easy to scold yourself for noticing. Claire hugged me lightly. "We're almost done with the big decisions," she said. I sat down. They talked about flowers, menu cards, signature cocktails, hotel bags, chair covers, ceremony music, and the order of the processional. They had spreadsheets, color palettes, printed samples. No one asked me anything until dessert. I cleared my throat. "I wondered whether there might be a small place for Henry in the ceremony," I said. "Maybe a candle, or a mention in the program. Nothing heavy." Claire's smile tightened. "Oh," she said, "that's sweet." Diane tilted her head. "It's just that weddings are already emotional." Claire nodded. "We don't want the ceremony to feel sad." I looked down at my tea. Henry had coached Evan's Little League team. He had taught him to drive. He had stayed up all night helping him build a volcano for 5th grade science because Evan had forgotten it was due. He had sold his fishing boat to help Evan after his first job fell through. And now a candle for him was too sad. Evan was not at that lunch, so I told myself he would have spoken up if he had been there. That is what we do when someone we love disappoints us from a distance. We imagine a better version of them in the room. But the version I imagined was not the version who showed up later. 2 weeks after that lunch, Claire sent the wedding program in a group message. It was beautiful. Cream paper, elegant font, a small watercolor of the venue at the top. Under the welcome section, it said, "Together with their families, Claire Elizabeth Morrison and Evan Henry Porter request the honor of your presence." Then came a note thanking Claire's parents, Diane and Robert Morrison, for their love, guidance, and generosity. My name appeared later, under family of the groom. Marilyn Porter, mother of the groom. That was all. No Henry. No mention of the gift. No acknowledgement that most of the reception had become possible because of the money Henry and I had saved. Money saved by eating at home, driving used cars, and fixing things ourselves instead of replacing them. I stared at that program on my phone while standing in the cereal aisle at Kroger. A woman beside me reached for oatmeal. I put my phone in my purse. Then I bought the store brand. Because old habits do not leave just because your heart is sore. I did not say anything. At that point, I still believed silence was grace. I still believed being hurt did not give me the right to make things harder. I still believed my son would notice eventually. Then came the visit that changed the whole story. 3 days before the wedding, Evan came to my house. It was late afternoon. The kind of May light that turns everything gold for a few minutes before the shadows stretch across the yard. I had just taken banana bread out of the oven. Evan had always liked it with walnuts. He came in through the back door, but he did not smile when he smelled it. He looked pale. "Mom," he said, "can we talk?" I wiped my hands on a dish towel. We sat at the kitchen table. That table had heard every hard conversation in our family. Bills, report cards, Henry's diagnosis, funeral arrangements. The table had small scratches near my chair from years of Henry tapping his pen while balancing the checkbook. Evan did not sit in his usual seat. That made me nervous before he said a word. "What is it?" I asked. He rubbed both hands over his face. The wedding costs got away from me. I stayed quiet. He looked embarrassed. And for a moment, I saw the boy again. The boy who had broken a neighbor's window with a baseball and come home shaking. "How far away?" I asked. He took a folded paper from his jacket pocket. He put it on the table. I did not touch it at first. "Evan," I said. "It's not as bad as it looks," he said quickly. That is another sentence people say when it is exactly as bad as it looks. I unfolded the paper. $63,000. For a moment, I thought I had read it wrong. "Evan," I said slowly, "this is $63,000. I know. On top of what I already gave you. I know. On top of the extras." He swallowed. "Yes." The kitchen seemed to grow very still. Outside, a bird landed on the fence. Then it flew away. "What is this for?" I asked. He said it was complicated. The guest count, the bar package, the upgraded meal, photography, vendor overtime, some balance he had carried on a card. A few things Claire did not fully understand yet. That last part caught me. Claire does not understand. He looked away. "I mean, she knows weddings are expensive." "That is not what I asked." He sighed. "Mum, please, I cannot have this fall apart now. Who signed the contracts?" He blinked. "What? Who signed the contracts, Evan?" "Claire and I did." "Not me." "No, but you are asking me to cover them." He leaned forward. "I am asking you to help me get through this weekend." There it was. Not help us make a plan. Not sit down and talk honestly. Just get me through this. I looked at Henry's photograph in the living room. I could almost hear him. Don't let love make you careless. But Evan's eyes were tired. His shoulders were tight. He looked humiliated. And some old mothering reflex rose in me before wisdom could stop it. I told you 35,000 was final, I said. I know. You promised. I know. This is not a small mistake. I know, Mom. His voice cracked. I know. I messed up. But if this comes out now, Claire will be devastated. Her parents will think I can't provide. Everyone will know. I looked at him for a long time. Know what? He did not answer. Know that you planned a wedding you could not afford? His face flushed. That's not fair. No, I said softly. It is not fair. I should have stopped there. I should have made coffee, taken out a notebook, and asked him to call Claire right then. I should have said, we will not solve dishonesty with my checkbook. But I was tired. Tired of being the only parent left. Tired of being the place where Evan brought his fear. Tired of wondering whether saying no would make him disappear from my life. So I got my checkbook. My hand shook while I wrote the number. $63,000. Evan told me he would hold the check until the wedding weekend. He said he needed it for the final payment packet and the overages. He said some vendors would be settled after the ceremony. He said he would make everything right once the pressure was off. I wanted to believe that. So I wrote the date. I wrote the payee line the way Evan told me. Then I signed my name. Marilyn Ann Porter. A name that suddenly looked smaller than it should have. Evan exhaled like I had taken a stone off his chest. He stood and came around the table to hug me. Thank you, Mom, he said into my hair. I'll make this right. I wanted to believe him. But after he left, the banana bread sat untouched on the counter. And for the first time in my life, I looked at my own signature and felt like I had betrayed myself. The next morning, I checked my bank account. The check had not cleared. I checked again that night. Still outstanding. I told myself that meant nothing. But something in me had started watching. That is how a woman begins to wake up. First, she notices. Then she remembers. Then she waits to see if the people she loves will do the right thing without being forced. The rehearsal dinner gave me my answer. It was held in a private room at an Italian restaurant. Exposed brick walls, hanging lights, black and white photographs of Rome on the walls, small candles on the tables. I arrived with a small gift for Claire, a handkerchief with a blue embroidered edge. Old-fashioned, I know, but my mother had given me one before my wedding. I thought it might be a gentle gesture. Claire thanked me. Then she set it on a side table without opening it. I told myself she was busy. Then I saw the seating chart. My name was at a table near the back, with two of Diane's cousins, one of Robert's business friends, and a woman who had once worked with Claire. Diane and Robert were seated near Evan and Claire. I stared at my name for a second too long. Evan came up behind me. Everything okay? He asked. I turned. I'm at table 7. He glanced at the chart. Yeah, Claire thought it would balance the room better. Balance the room. I had paid enough to balance the budget, but not enough to sit near my son. I nodded. That's fine, I said. He looked relieved. That relief hurt more than the seating chart. Dinner was lovely. The chicken was dry, but no one said so. Diane gave a toast, thanking friends and family for surrounding Claire and Evan with love. She named her parents. Robert's parents. Claire's godmother. The bridal party. The venue team. Even Amanda for managing the schedule. She did not say my name. She did not say Henry's. I sat with my hands in my lap and listened to people laugh. Across the room, Evan caught my eye once. Just once. Then he looked away. That was when I began to understand. He knew. Maybe not all of it, Maybe not in the way I needed him to know, but he knew enough to look away. That night, I drove home knowing the seating chart had told me the truth my son would not say out loud. The next morning, the wedding day began with fog. Not dramatic fog, just a soft grey over the lawns and fields as I drove to the venue with my dress hanging in the back seat. I had pressed it twice. Pale blue. Modest neckline. 3/4 sleeves. Claire had approved it weeks earlier. The venue was a restored brick estate with white columns and a lawn that rolled down toward a pond. It was beautiful in the way expensive places are beautiful. Every corner seemed designed to appear effortless. Inside, everyone was moving quickly. Florists carried buckets of white roses. A young man in a black vest tested microphones near the ceremony chairs. Bridesmaids moved through the hallway in matching robes. They laughed too loudly because they were nervous. I found Evan near the groom's room. He looked handsome in his dark suit. Older than I expected. For a second, I saw Henry in the shape of his jaw. "Mom," he said, kissing my cheek quickly. "You made it." "You made it." As if I had driven through a snowstorm. Not simply arrived at my son's wedding. "I wouldn't miss it," I said. He looked over my dress. Before he could say anything, Diane appeared behind him. "Oh," she said. Just that. "Oh." I smiled. "Good morning, Diane." She looked at my dress again. "That colour is very close to the bridesmaids." My face warmed. "Claire approved it," I said. "Yes, I'm sure. It's just photographing a little blue." "A little blue." That dress was blue because Henry always said I looked peaceful in blue. He had bought me a blue sweater once after a hard winter. He said, "There, now you look like spring." Evan shifted beside me. "Mom," he said quietly, "please don't make this a thing." The sentence landed so softly that no one else would have known it cut. "I wasn't making it a thing," I said. He gave me a tired look. Not angry. Not ashamed. Tired. As if my hurt was one more task on his wedding checklist. That was the first warning of the day. The second came. 5 minutes later. Near the ceremony room, I found a small table with framed photographs of family members. Claire's grandparents. Diane's sister. Robert's father. A cousin who had died young. Henry was not there. I stood in front of that table for a long moment. Henry had been Evan's father for 37 years. He had held him through ear infections, taught him how to tie a tie, paid for community college when Evan dropped out of the first university and was too ashamed to ask for help. He had loved him in practical ways. And practical love is the kind that keeps families alive. But Henry was missing from the table, missing from the program, missing from the ceremony, and I was supposed to smile because grief was inconvenient to the photographs. I went looking for Evan. I found him in a side hallway with Claire. They did not see me at first. I stopped when I heard my name. Claire sounded upset. "Your mother seems tense." "She's fine," Evan said. She looked upset about the dress. "She'll get over it." My hand tightened around the strap of my purse. Claire said something I could not hear. Then Evan said the words that changed everything. "She always does." Not cruelly. That almost made it worse. He said it casually, like he was describing the weather. "She'll get over it." She always does. There are sentences that do not shout, but they echo for the rest of your life. I stepped backward before they saw me. My heart was not pounding. I was not shaking. I felt strangely calm, like the air before a storm finally breaks. For years, I had thought Evan did not notice what I swallowed. Now I understood. He noticed. He had simply counted on it. And once I understood that, I could not go back to being the woman I had been 10 minutes earlier. The photographer's assistant found me near the windows. She handed me a printed schedule for family portraits. "Here you go, Mrs. Porter. We're trying to keep everyone moving." I looked down. Bride with parents. Bride with parents and siblings. Bride with extended family. Groom with bride's parents. Couple with Morrison family. Couple with wedding party. Then, near the bottom, groom with mother. Quick portrait. Quick portrait. My entire place in my son's wedding had been reduced to 2 words and a time slot. I folded the paper carefully. Then I placed it in my purse. And I walked to the restroom. No one was inside. The room smelled faintly of hairspray and eucalyptus soap. Someone had left a lipstick on the counter. There were white towels rolled in a basket. And a little sign that said, "Today is a beautiful day." I stood in front of the mirror. For the first time all morning, I looked at myself. Really looked. The pearl earrings. The careful makeup. The pale blue dress. The face of a woman who had spent decades believing that being agreeable was the same as being loving. I touched one pearl. Henry had given them to me in a small velvet box after our 30th anniversary dinner. We had eaten at a steakhouse we could barely afford. He had pretended not to notice when I cried over the dessert menu. "You deserve pretty things too, Marilyn," he had said. I looked at myself in the mirror. Then I whispered, "Would you recognize me?" There was no answer, of course. But sometimes the dead speak through what they taught you while they were living. I took my phone from my purse. My bank app showed the check had still not cleared. $63,000. Still hanging there like a door I had not yet closed. I did not move for almost a full minute, because this was the last quiet moment before everything changed. Then I called the bank. A woman named Patricia answered after the automated menu. Her voice was calm and professional. "How may I help you today?" "I need to stop payment on a personal check," I said. My voice did not tremble. She asked for my account information. Then the check number. Then the amount. $63,000, I said. There was a tiny pause. Not judgment. Just human surprise. "And the payee?" I told her. "The check has not cleared," she said. "We can place a stop payment. There is a fee. I do need to confirm that you understand this may not apply if the check has already been cashed or processed outside the usual window." "I understand. Are you sure you want to proceed?" I looked at myself in the mirror again. For a moment, I saw all the versions of myself I had been. The young mother counting grocery money. The wife sitting beside Henry during chemo. The widow signing insurance forms at the dining room table. The mother writing checks with shaking hands. The woman at table 7. The woman in the quick portrait. "Yes," I said, "I am sure." Patricia typed for a moment. Then she said, "The stop payment has been placed." That was all. No thunder. No music. No dramatic collapse of the world. Just a professional woman on the phone doing her job. And another woman in a wedding venue restroom, quietly taking her life back. One signature at a time. I thanked her and ended the call. Then I stood there for a few seconds, breathing. I expected guilt to rush in. Instead, what came first was grief. I grieved the kind of son I had been pretending Evan was. I grieved the kind of mother I had tried to be. I grieved Henry. Because he would have known what to do sooner than I did. Then I put my phone back in my purse. I straightened my dress. And I returned to the hallway. No one knew yet. That was the strange part. The flowers were still perfect. The music was still soft. The bride was still beautiful. But when I walked back into that hallway, I was no longer the same woman who had walked into that restroom. The photographer was gathering people near the windows. Claire looked beautiful. Truly beautiful. Her dress was simple and elegant, with lace sleeves and a long veil. She was pale with nerves. And for a moment, I felt tenderness toward her. She was not my enemy. She was a woman trying to step into a life that had already begun with hidden bills and half-truths. That did not excuse her, but it made her human. Evan stood beside her, checking his watch. When he saw me, he frowned slightly. "Where were you?" "The restroom," I said. "We're behind." "So I heard." He leaned closer. He kept his voice low. "Mom, just smile for the photos. Don't make today harder than it already is." There it was. The line, the request. The command disguised as a whisper. For 1 second, I looked at my son, not the boy with the untied shoe, not the grieving man at his father's funeral, the man in front of me. A man who had asked me for $63,000 3 days earlier, and now wanted me to make my face pleasant enough not to disturb his wedding album. I smiled. The photographer lifted her camera. "Beautiful," she said. "Mother of the groom, move just a little closer." I moved closer. Evan put one arm lightly around my shoulder. The camera clicked. And in that photograph, I look peaceful. People might mistake that peace for surrender. It was not. It was the first moment all day when my face and my decision finally belonged to the same person. The ceremony began 20 minutes later. I walked in alone. I sat where the usher directed me. Second row on the groom's side, not front, not center, not beside anyone who knew what Henry's laugh sounded like. But I sat tall. The music started. Claire came down the aisle. Evan's face changed when he saw her, and I was glad for that. Whatever else had happened, I wanted my son to love his wife. I did not want pain for him. I wanted truth. They said their vows under an arch of white flowers. The officiant spoke about partnership, honesty, patience, choosing each other every day. I listened carefully. Honesty, patience, choosing. I wondered how many marriages begin with beautiful promises made in rooms full of unpaid bills and unspoken resentment. After the ceremony, guests moved toward the cocktail area. Servers passed trays of little crab cakes and glasses of sparkling wine. A string quartet played near the terrace. People laughed, kissed cheeks, admired flowers. From the outside, nothing had changed. The wedding did not fall apart when I stopped paying. Only the lie did. I was standing near a window, holding a glass of water, when Evan approached me. His face was tight. "Mom," he said, "can I talk to you?" I set the glass down. "Of course." He guided me toward a side hallway near the venue office. His steps were quick. Mine were not. When we were out of sight of the guests, he turned. "Did you stop the check?" I looked at him. Yes. His mouth opened slightly. Then it closed. "You stopped the check?" "Yes." "Are you serious?" "Yes." His voice dropped. "Mom, what are you doing?" "I am stopping payment on a check I should not have written." His face flushed. "You cannot do this today." "I already did." He looked toward the hallway, then back at me. "The coordinator just told me the payment can't be processed. Claire is going to find out in front of everyone." "She may." "We have balances due. Vendors are waiting. We need that money." "You need a payment," I said. "You do not need mine." He stared at me. "Do you hear yourself?" "I do. This is my wedding day." "I know. You're humiliating me." I folded my hands in front of me. "No, Evan. I am refusing to finance my own humiliation." He blinked like I had slapped him. I had not raised my voice. That made him more uncomfortable than shouting would have. "What does that even mean?" he said. "It means I agreed to help you. I did not agree to be lied to, pressured, erased, and then told to smile for the pictures." He rubbed his forehead. "Mum, this is not the time." "That is what everyone says after they have made sure there is no better time." He looked away. For the first time all day, he did not have a quick answer. Then Claire appeared at the end of the hallway. "Evan," she said, "what's going on?" He turned toward her. "It's fine." "It doesn't look fine." She came closer. Her veil had been removed. A few curls had fallen loose near her face. She looked younger, without the perfect bridal stillness. Evan said, "My mom stopped the check." Claire stared at him. "What check?" There it was. The first crack in the performance. Evan's face changed. Claire looked from him to me. "What check, Evan?" I said nothing. This was not my lie to explain. Evan swallowed. "The one for the remaining balances." Claire's voice went quiet. "You said that was handled." "It was supposed to be." That answer told her more than he meant it to. She looked at me then. For the first time, I saw not arrogance, but confusion. "Marilyn," she said, "Evan told me you wanted to help." "I did want to help," I said. "I gave $35,000 months ago. That was the agreement. I also covered several additional costs after that, because Evan told me each one was the last." Claire looked at him again. Evan stared at the floor. I continued, still calm. 3 days ago, he came to my kitchen and asked for another $63,000. He said things had gotten away from him. He said he needed to get through the wedding. Claire's eyes filled with something I could not name. Anger, maybe. Embarrassment. Fear. "You didn't tell me that," she said to Evan. He spoke quickly. "I was trying to protect you." "No," I said softly. "You were trying to protect the image of yourself." He looked at me sharply. But he knew. Truth does not need permission to enter a room. Before anyone could speak, Diane appeared. She had been drawn by the tension. Some people can sense disorder through walls. "What is happening?" she asked. Claire turned away, wiping under one eye carefully so she would not disturb her makeup. Evan said, "It's a money issue." Diane's posture changed. "A money issue?" I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because Diane had helped design a wedding where money was everywhere. But no one was supposed to mention where it came from. "This is really not the time for a family money discussion," Diane said. "I agree," I answered. "That is why I tried to have it before today and was told not to make things uncomfortable." Diane's lips pressed together. Evan said, "Mom, please, just undo it. Call the bank back." "No." "One phone call." "No." His eyes hardened. "So what? You're punishing me." "No, Evan. I am allowing you to become responsible for your own promises." He took a step back. Claire sat down on a small upholstered bench against the wall. Her hands were shaking. I looked at her. "Claire, I am sorry this is happening on your wedding day. I truly am. But I will not be made responsible for decisions I was not included in, costs I did not approve, and disrespect I was expected to absorb quietly." She did not answer. I turned back to Evan. "I love you. That has not changed. But love is not a blank check." For a few seconds, no one moved. Then the venue coordinator appeared. Her name was Melissa. She had a clipboard, sensible shoes, and the calm expression of a woman who had seen every kind of family emergency. "Evan," she said carefully, "we need to resolve the open balance before the reception timeline continues as planned." Evan looked trapped. "What are the options?" he asked. Melissa glanced at me, then back at him. "The contract is under your name and Claire's. Mrs. Porter is not listed as a responsible party." That one sentence changed the air in the hallway. I had known it, but hearing someone else say it made my knees feel steadier. Melissa continued, "We can place part of the remaining amount on a card, adjust certain optional services, or arrange a signed payment plan for items not yet completed. Some services have already been delivered and cannot be removed. No drama, just facts." Diane spoke quickly. "What optional services?" Melissa looked at her clipboard. "Premium bar extension, late-night food station, champagne upgrade, dessert display, vendor overtime, and the additional photography hour." Diane's face paled slightly. Robert arrived then, looking confused. Claire must have texted him. "What's going on?" he asked. Diane whispered something to him. He looked at Evan, then at Claire, then at me. "How much is the balance?" he asked. No one answered. Melissa did. $63,000 was the amount expected to be applied today. Robert stared. 63,000 was just the balance. The hallway went silent. There are moments when a number becomes more powerful because someone says it out loud. Evan looked ashamed. Claire covered her mouth. Diane looked at her husband like a private family. Embarrassment had just walked into public wearing muddy shoes. Robert said, very quietly, "Evan, you told us the groom's side had things covered." Evan's jaw tightened. I felt no satisfaction. That surprised me. I had imagined that if the truth came out, I would feel vindicated. Cleanly. Simply. But real life is messier than that. Watching your child face consequences is painful, even when those consequences are deserved. I wanted to comfort him. That old instinct rose again. Then I remembered the hallway. She'll get over it. She always does. No, not this time. The next hour was awkward. But it was not catastrophic. That is something age teaches you. Most situations people call disasters are really just consequences arriving without music. Robert put part of the balance on a credit card. Enough to keep the reception moving. But I heard him tell Evan, in a low voice, that there would be a repayment agreement before the night was over. Diane argued with Melissa about what could be removed. Claire went into a side room with Amanda. Evan stood in the hallway making phone calls. His face was red. His tie was slightly crooked. The premium bar was shortened. The late-night food station was cancelled. The champagne upgrade disappeared. The extra dessert display was removed. The photographer stayed for the basic package, but not the additional hour. The ceremony and dinner were already covered. No one went hungry. No guest was thrown out. No police came. The wedding did not collapse. Guests still ate dinner. Music still played. People still danced. The world did not end because Marilyn Porter stopped paying for things no one had respected her enough to explain. I stayed for the reception. Some people may not understand that. They may think I should have left immediately, or made a speech, or demanded an apology in front of everyone. But I am not a woman who enjoys public scenes, and I had not come to punish strangers who simply wanted to celebrate a wedding. So I sat at my assigned table, table 7, near the back. The chicken was better than the rehearsal dinner chicken. The salad had too much dressing. The centerpieces were low and white and lovely. One of Diane's cousins asked how I knew the couple. "I'm the groom's mother," I said. She looked startled. "Oh," she said. "I'm sorry. I thought you were a family friend." I smiled. A little of both, perhaps. Across the room, Evan and Claire moved through the evening like people carrying invisible weight. They danced their first dance. They cut the cake. They smiled for guests. But occasionally, Evan looked toward me. Not often, just enough. I did not wave. I did not glare. I simply sat there, present, and no longer available to be used. That was when I realized something else. Dignity does not always feel powerful at first. Sometimes it feels like sitting at the wrong table with your back straight. Knowing you finally did right by yourself. After dinner, before the toasts, I stood. I found Evan near the edge of the dance floor. Claire was beside him, speaking to one of her bridesmaids. When she saw me, her expression tightened, but she did not turn away. "I'm going home," I said. Evan looked surprised. "Already?" "Yes. The speeches are about to start." "I know." Claire looked down at her bouquet. I said, "I wish you both a marriage more honest than the wedding planning was." Claire's eyes flicked up. Evan's face changed. Hurt, anger, shame, all mixed together. "Mom," he said. I waited. He did not finish. So I leaned forward and kissed his cheek. "I love you," I said, "but I am done paying to be invisible." Then I walked out. No one stopped me. Outside, the evening air was cool. The sky had turned lavender over the parking lot. Someone had tied white ribbons to the handles of the getaway car. They moved gently in the breeze. I sat in my car for a while before starting the engine. My hands were steady. That made me cry. Not the confrontation. Not the money. Not the seating chart. My steady hands. For so many years, I had mistaken anxiety for love. I thought if I was worried enough, available enough, and forgiving enough, then I was being a good mother. But sitting in that car, in my pale blue dress, I understood something simple and late. A good mother does not have to disappear so her child can feel comfortable. I thought leaving the reception would be the end of it. I was wrong. The hardest call came 3 days later. When I got home that night, the house was dark, except for the lamp I had left on in the living room. I took off my shoes by the door. I carried them, instead of wearing them down the hallway. Old habit. Henry always said heels were hard on the floor. In the bedroom, I removed my earrings. I placed them in the small blue dish on my dresser. Then I went to the living room and stood in front of Henry's photograph. "You were right," I said. My voice broke then. Not loudly, just enough. I sat in his old chair and let the tears come. I cried because I missed him. I cried because Evan had disappointed me. I cried because I had disappointed myself by waiting so long. And I cried because doing the right thing does not always feel good at first. Sometimes it just feels like standing alone in a room you used to share with someone who would have understood. 3 days later, Evan called. I knew it would be him before I looked at the phone. Mothers have a strange sense for certain rings. I let it ring twice. Then I answered. "Hello, Evan." His voice was tight. "You got to drive home, Mum." I had to stand there and explain why my own mother pulled the money. "No, hello." "No, how are you?" "No, I'm sorry." Just accusation. "Yes," I said. "You had to explain the truth." He made a sharp sound. "Claire is furious." "I imagine she is." "Her parents are furious." "I imagine they are too." "Do you even care?" That hurt. Of course I cared. That was the problem. I had cared so much that I had confused caring with rescuing. "I care very much," I said, "but I am not going to confuse your anger with my guilt." He was quiet. I continued. "You asked me for $35,000. I gave it. Then you asked for more. I gave that too. Then you came to my kitchen 3 days before your wedding and asked for $63,000 because you had hidden the truth from your future wife and her parents." I was under pressure. "I know. You don't know what it was like." "No, Evan. But I know what it was like to be told to sit at the back of a room I helped pay for. I know what it was like to see your father erased because grief did not match the color scheme. And I know what it was like to hear you say I would get over it, because I always do." Silence. This silence was different. He had not known I heard that. Finally, he said, "You heard that?" "Yes." He exhaled. "I didn't mean it like that." "I think you did." "No, Mom. I think you meant that I usually make things easier for you by swallowing what hurts me." He did not answer. "And you were right," I said. "Until that day." His voice changed then. It grew smaller. "I don't know how to fix what I already said." That was the first honest sentence he had given me. But I was not ready to rescue him from it. "I am not asking you to perform remorse, Evan. I am telling you what will be different from now on." He said nothing. So I told him. "I will not write large checks without full honesty. I will not cover emergencies caused by poor planning." I will not attend family events where I am expected to pay and then act grateful for a corner seat, and I will not accept disrespect because someone else is stressed. He was quiet for so long that I thought he might hang up. Then he said, "So that's it?" "No," I said. "That is the beginning of something honest if you want it." He did not know what to do with that. Neither did I, really. We ended the call stiffly. There was no hug, no apology, no music swelling in the background. Just a mother in her kitchen, holding a phone, learning that boundaries can feel lonely even when they are right. For 6 weeks, Evan barely contacted me. He sent one text about returning a serving platter I had lent them for the engagement party. Claire sent nothing. For 6 weeks, I wondered if the price of my dignity would be my son's silence. I will not pretend those weeks were easy. There were mornings when I woke up and reached for my phone before I remembered there would be no message. There were evenings when I stood in the grocery store and almost bought Evan's favorite coffee out of habit. I did not. Not because I stopped loving him. Because love that has no boundary becomes a place where other people store their carelessness. My sister Ruth came over twice a week during that time. Ruth is 72. She has been widowed longer than I have, and she has never wasted a sentence in her life. The first time she came after the wedding, she brought a casserole and a folder. "What's that?" I asked. "Names," she said. "Names of what?" "Financial planners who don't talk down to women our age." I laughed for the first time in days. Ruth put the casserole on the counter. Then she looked at me. "Henry would be proud of you." That nearly undid me. "I'm not sure Evan ever will be." Ruth shrugged. "That may not be the assignment." The next week, I met with a financial advisor named Karen. She had silver hair, red glasses, and a way of explaining things without making me feel foolish. We moved the remaining money into accounts better protected for my future care. We set aside money for taxes, home repairs, and emergencies. We reviewed beneficiary forms. We made sure no one could pressure me into large withdrawals without time to think. Then I called an attorney and updated my estate documents. Not to punish Evan, to clarify my life. I fixed the roof over the garage too. Henry had patched it twice before he died, but it had started leaking again near the storage shelves. For 2 years I had put a bucket under the drip and told myself I would handle it later. Now I handled it. Because I was done letting my own house leak while I patched everyone else's mistakes. I scheduled the dental work I had postponed. I replaced the old water heater before it failed. And in July, Ruth and I took a 4-day trip to Lake Michigan. Nothing fancy. A clean motel with blue doors. Fried perch at a little restaurant near the harbor. Morning coffee on a bench while gulls argued overhead. One evening, we sat on the beach with our shoes off. We watched the sun go down. Ruth said, "Do you regret it?" I knew what she meant. I thought for a long time. "I regret that it was necessary," I said. "I don't regret doing it." She nodded. That's usually how dignity feels. 6 weeks after the wedding, Evan called again. I was in the backyard trimming dead blooms from the hydrangeas. My hands were dirty. My phone was on the patio table. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then I answered. "Hi, Mom." His voice was different. Not warm exactly, but less armored. "Hello, Evan." There was a pause. "I've been trying to figure out what to say." I sat in the patio chair. "You can start with the truth." He let out a breath. "I'm angry." "I know." I was embarrassed. "I know. Claire and I have been fighting." "I'm sorry." He was quiet. Then he said, "But I should not have put you in that position." The words were plain. No poetry. No tears. They were better because of that. "No," I said, "you should not have." I told myself I was protecting everyone. Yes. But I think I was mostly protecting myself. I looked across the yard at the maple tree. A squirrel ran along the fence. It stopped and stared at me like it had opinions. I think so too, I said. Evan gave a sad little laugh. You don't make this easy. I used to. That landed between us. He said, I'm sorry I made you feel like money mattered more than you. I closed my eyes. That was the sentence I had needed. Not because it fixed everything. It did not. But because it named the wound. Thank you, I said. I mean it. I believe you mean it today. He was quiet. Then he said, That's fair. I appreciated that. We talked for 20 minutes. Not like before. Not easy and familiar. More careful. Like two people stepping across a floor after a glass has broken. He told me Claire was still upset. But she was beginning to understand that he had hidden more from her than from anyone else. He told me they were meeting with a counselor through their church. He told me Robert had insisted they create a repayment plan for the portion he had put on his card. I listened. I did not offer money. Not once. At the end of the call, Evan said, Can I come by next week? I looked toward the kitchen window. For a second, I saw him at 17. Standing by the refrigerator, drinking orange juice from the carton, I saw him at 8, asleep on the couch with a fever. I saw him at 41, whispering, Just smile for the photos, Mum. All of him. That is the hard part about loving an adult child. You do not get to love only the version that was easy. Yes, I said, you can come by. Should I bring anything? I almost said no. Then I smiled. Bring your honesty. He was quiet. Then he said, I'll try. That was not a perfect answer. But it was a real one. A week later, Evan came to the house. He brought coffee and a small bag of lemon cookies from the bakery Henry used to like. I noticed that. I did not mention it right away. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where he had asked for the check, the same table where I had written it. This time, there was no checkbook between us. For a while, we talked about ordinary things. His work, my roof repair, the neighbour's new dog that barked at every leaf. Then Evan looked toward Henry's photograph. I should have made sure Dad was included, he said. My throat tightened. Yes, I don't know why I didn't. I think you were avoiding grief. He nodded slowly. Maybe. And when you avoided grief, you avoided me too. He looked at me then. I did. He looked down at his coffee cup. I'm sorry. I accepted that apology. Not with a grand speech. Just with a nod. Then I told him something I had been practicing. Evan, I love you. I want you in my life. But I will not use money to keep you close anymore. He swallowed. I know. I need you to know it more than once. He gave a small smile. Okay. So, I'll say it clearly. No large checks, no emergency money without full honesty. No last-minute rescues for problems you created and hid. And if I am invited somewhere, I expect to be treated as family, not as funding. He nodded. I understand. Maybe he did. Maybe he only partly did. But that was enough for that day. Before he left, he paused by the door. Mom, yes? Were you really going to leave the wedding before the speeches, no matter what? I thought about it. No, I said. I decided when I realized I had nothing left to prove by staying. He nodded slowly. Then he hugged me. It was not the easy hug of a son who assumed forgiveness was waiting where he left it. It was careful, respectful, a little sad. That was all right. Some relationships do not heal by going back to what they were. Some heal by becoming more honest than they have ever been. Months have passed since the wedding now. There is one photograph from that day on my mantle, not the formal portrait with Evan. Not the one where everyone is smiling too brightly under the white flowers. It is a candid photograph Ruth took on her phone after I got home. I am standing in my kitchen, in the pale blue dress. I am holding my shoes in one hand. and I am looking toward Henry's photograph. My makeup is tired. My hair is coming loose. There is no perfect lighting, but when I look at that picture, I recognize myself. I have seen the wedding photos online. In them, Claire is beautiful. Evan is handsome. Diane looks pleased. And the flowers look exactly as expensive as they were. In the quick portrait, I am standing beside my son, smiling. People who do not know the story would think it was just a nice picture of a groom and his mother. That is fine. Not every victory needs witnesses. Sometimes justice is not a slammed door. Sometimes it is a stopped check. A quiet phone call. A woman standing in a restroom mirror, finally asking whether the life she is living still belongs to her. Sometimes dignity comes back softly. It does not announce itself. It simply arrives the moment you stop confusing sacrifice with love. Evan and I are still finding our way. Claire is polite when we speak. Not warm. Not cruel. Polite. Maybe warmth will come later. Maybe it will not. I no longer spend my evenings trying to earn it. Last Sunday, Evan came over to help me move 2 boxes from the garage. He stayed for coffee. Before he left, he asked if he could take Henry's old fishing tackle box. Not to sell. Not to store away. To clean it up. I thought maybe I could keep it in the den, he said. I looked at him carefully. Then I said, "Your father would like that." His eyes watered, but he did not turn it into a scene. Neither did I. After he left, I sat at the kitchen table and opened the little notebook where I sometimes write things I do not want to forget. I wrote, "I did not lose my son by saying no. I stopped losing myself by saying yes." Then I closed the notebook, and I made tea. The house was quiet, but not empty in the way it used to feel. Outside, the maple leaves moved in the wind. The repaired roof held. The new water heater hummed softly in the basement. My pearl earrings rested in their blue dish upstairs, waiting for a day when I wanted to wear something pretty for myself. That night, I placed my teacup in the sink. I touched the blue dish where my pearls were resting. Then I turned off the kitchen light and looked once more at Henry's photograph. For years, I had used our savings to keep everyone else comfortable. But Henry and I had not saved that money for comfort. We had saved it for protection. And on my son's wedding day, I finally understood something I should have known all along. I was allowed to be one of the people protected. I still love my son. That never changed. But I no longer believe love requires me to become small enough to fit inside someone else's comfort. On his wedding day, Evan told me to just smile for the photos. So I did. But not because he told me to. I smiled because, for the first time in years, I had stopped paying people to pretend they respected me. That was not revenge. That was not cruelty. That was not a mother ruining her son's wedding. That was a woman, finally remembering that the money she and her husband saved had a purpose. It was not there to buy a seat at the table. It was not there to purchase silence. It was not there to protect a grown man from the truth. It was there to protect the life Henry and I built. And at 69 years old, standing in a pale blue dress with steady hands and a broken heart, I finally chose that life again. So yes, I smiled for the photos. But the woman in that photograph was not giving in. She was coming back to herself. And that was the beginning of getting my life back.